and president of Divorce Right. And we provide training for HR professionals and company supervisors, and we provide divorce coaching and case management for your divorcing employees. And why is this important? Because divorce costs your company far more than it costs your employee. In fact, one company that we're in talks with right now loses over $250 million a year in lost productivity due to absences, errors, distractions, and just lost productivity. And that's where we come in. We give your employees guidance and direction so that they can get out of overwhelm, have a clear head, and show up to work as a whole and productive member of your team. And the sooner you get your employees the support they need, the faster your employee can show up as a valuable employee. And as a reminder, we have SHRM credits for this presentation, and I will post the link to that form that you'll have to fill out at the end of this conversation. And my co-host today, Paulette Rigo, she's a certified divorce coach, a certified divorce specialist, credentialed mediator, and director of coaching and management here at Divorce Right, is busy getting additional training in the amicable divorce process today. She's always working to be on the cutting edge of everything we need to carry your employees safely through a divorce. And together we tackle the biggest disruptor in your company, which is divorce. Today, we are joined by my friend from across the pond, Susie Miller. We are talking about high conflict divorces and the narcissistic personality disorder, and actually what it does to your employees. So I'd love to tell you a little bit about Susie. Susie Miller is a divorce strategist, a public speaker and trainer, featured on Radio 4 Women's Hour, the Daily Mail, and C5's The Vanessa Show, and creator of the UK's first divorce fairs. Susie has been a TEDx speaker and works internationally helping divorcing families evolve from broken families into extended families by showing them how to avoid costly court battles and to use peace as their weapon of choice. Thank you so much for being with us today, Susie. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
This is something that's very near and dear to me. The narcissistic personality disorder seems to have been something that I have attracted into my life more than once, more than twice, sadly to say. But now I've learned the signs of what that can be, because this is a devastating relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does your head in, and it can affect your health, and it can also trash all your close relationships as well.
Oh, absolutely. So, we hear a lot, the word narcissistic personality disorder, particularly in politics today, is really bantered around, and it's just, oh, you're a narcissist. Oh, that you're a narcissist. But what is a narcissist, and what are some of those signs?
So I can't give you the actual sort of professional psychological distinction, but a definition. But in my experience of talking to people who are in these relationships, one of the first things is I try to work out. I say, look, they're on a spectrum. So just calling someone a narcissist because they're a bit of a bully and they're behaving badly and you don't like them at the moment doesn't make them a narcissist. And everybody in divorce, most of us go through a point where we're not very nice. We're not at our best because we're frightened. And with a lot of people, because actually true narcissism is relatively rare. You wouldn't think it at the moment because there seem to be so many in politics on both sides of the pond. But one of the ways I like to help people look at it is if that person was happy, not afraid, not frightened you're going to take all their money away and they're not going to lose their identity through the divorce financially, and you're going to take all their pension, are they actually fairly okay the rest, when that's not happening? And if they are, chances are that they're not truly a narcissist. But that personality trait can come out in a lot of people under pressure. And if you're someone who doesn't know how to put in the boundaries and put a stop to it and just not allow them to play that game, which it's, to be honest, it's all of us. We don't learn that, Vicky, as children. We don't learn how to put in boundaries. So a lot of us, even if we don't end up in quite the extreme relationships that you were, we've all had experience of it, and we've often mismanaged it quite spectacularly because we don't know how to do it.
It's really tough. And one of the things that because I've also been studying the narcissistic personality disorder with specific reason to avoid it in my future. It's
Yeah.
really important to me because it's really been very destructive in my life. And that's why it can be very destructive to our listeners' employees' lives. It really can be devastating. But the
And there
one
are
thing that
some key things,
sorry?
aren't there? Some key things that you'd immediately be suspicious of. So, for example, if friends I know who've been in those relationships, it's been things like the clothes that they put on aren't the
Mm.
ones that they want to put on. It's the ones that they've been led to believe by their narcissistic partner that this is how they should dress. And it's quite, and whether their hair is long or short, and just even things that you would think, well, surely they could just decide that for themselves. That coercive and controlling relationship is taken over even the smallest details. And it can, I think it can overlap with relationships where where there's abuse. So you have to be careful that of making sure that whether there is abuse or not, because that may not be the case, but it could still be that that person wants to get home at a certain time and is really, really stressed if they don't, because they just have been kind of brainwashed really into that's what they have to do because they're desperately trying to keep that person happy all the time. Whereas,
So what a sign you would say would be that a change in their clothing, a change in their appearance, if they're
or their reluctance to change. So if you're out with the girls at lunchtime at work and everyone say, hey, you should try this on or you try that. And if that person's going, oh, my husband wouldn't like that, wouldn't like me in that. That's a that's a telltale sign. And oh, I've got to be home. He likes things done a certain way, and I have to be there. And that doesn't mean they're in he's going to beat her up. It doesn't mean it's an abusive relationship. But at the end of the day, if someone is curtailing and doing things in their life where the rest of their friends are just kind of doing what they want, that is a definite sign that something's just not quite right, because it's almost like your freedom's been taken away from you, and that person won't see it's happening. And if you try and point it out to them, they'll just think, well, no, I'm being a good wife or a good husband,
right.
if it's the other way around, and they won't see it and they won't accept it either.
They lose their identity slowly over
Yeah,
time, don't they?
yeah, it's like a drip feed.
So what happens when an employee is divorcing a narcissist? Are there some things that an employer would see or maybe hear at the water cooler?
It's going to be even more traumatic than much more traumatic usually than a normal divorce, which can be bad enough in the workplace, as you know. But
Yeah.
what you've got is the amount of guilt and fear that is put onto that person. So around the water cooler, it's you'd think, oh great, they're going to get rid of that spouse. No, it's the best thing that could have ever happened to them. But what they will be feeling is bully, because what often a narcissist will do is use the court system as a form of control and to bully.
Yes.
And that's both in the US and the UK. And I actually was talking to a narcissist expert once, a psychologist who works specifically mainly with narcissists, and she said the courtroom is the playground for narcissists. Because the family law system is, sorry, lawyers, barristers, mainly barristers and judges, quite a lot of them are drawn to a lot of narcissists are drawn to that profession, so there can be quite a preponderance there, and they think that let's say it's your husband who has the narcissistic tendencies. They think, oh, he's so charming, he's so lovely, and she's just this kind of wobbly woman, and he's giving out. He'll say that she's got mental problems and mental health issues. Some will even try to get their wives sectioned. That does happen. So it's
The sections, what does that mean over here in the United States?
Put into a mental asylum.
So Baker acted, we call that.
Yeah. Oh, right. What's that called? Say that again.
Baker Act. The Baker Act.
Oh, the Baker Act. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
New word for me.
72 hours. Yeah.
It's not nice. So they use them to bully. And the other thing that they'll sometimes do, well, they'll lie. I think that's one of the biggest things. They'll lie. So it'll be,
Pathologically.
yeah. So I did have a lady, she was divorcing someone, and he claimed that she was bullying him, that there was domestic abuse. She's a tiny little thing. And with 3 small children, she left the home because she didn't feel safe. Because this is, and this is an area where I think we have to be very aware that someone who is a narcissist doesn't mean they're violent or dangerous, but when with the pressure of divorce, that can be a trigger, and there perhaps it is possible that they will get out of hand. So there is a real duty of care, and I think as an employer and as co-workers, it's not always helpful to go, well, you should just tell him this is what you're going to do now and stand up to him, because actually that could be dangerous, and you've got to be very, very, very careful how you manage these situations.
There was a series, I think it was maybe on Netflix, and it was based on a true story here in the United States. It was called Dirty John. Have you heard of it?
No, but I'm going to look it up.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And I encourage it's the very most dangerous side of narcissism. But it is a real man that was killed by his I don't know if it was his stepdaughter or his girlfriend's daughter. I don't know if they were married or not, but he tried to kill her, and in the process, she ended up killing him. And it's a true story. They can be very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
But one thing that I know to be true about narcissists, and this is where it's a challenge for people at work, because they've gone to company barbecues, they've gone to the company Christmas party, or to a coworker's wedding or whatever. They're the most charming, most wonderful, most delightful person in the room, and nobody would believe that they would do the things that she is saying that he does. No, she's crazy. He's wonderful. But behind closed doors, that is a different human being, different everything. They speak differently. They are, they're dangerous. It's just a very dangerous situation. Can you speak to the danger in divorcing a narcissist? Is there a danger in divorcing a narcissist?
I think psychologically, there's definitely a lot of danger. I think it's so stressful to live with one, but you can kind of keep a balance by trying to basically keep them happy. And when you divorce, they're often very, very unhappy, especially when it comes to splitting the finances, and will use every trick in the book to demean you, might accuse you of abuse. All kinds of things can come out. But actually, I know with the woman narcissist I know, her husband had to spend a night in the cells because she'd accused him of having raped her. And of course nothing happened because there was no evidence and he hadn't. but she was just doing everything to grind him down. And one of the tactics I've noticed with narcissists is, particularly with women, but also some of the ladies, is they'll get themselves a Rottweiler lawyer. They might use mediation to start with, just to check out, often just to information gather and to seem reasonable, then realize that they don't want to have a discussion. They just want what they want, and that's it. That doesn't go down too well in mediation. So they'll get their Rottweiler lawyer, and then they will send endless letters, and they will try to basically break the other person in the cost of the legal bills. This is even before they've gone to court, in just stupid things that are being asked. And I have to say, there are unfortunately some lawyers who seem to aid and abet that process, which is very, very sad and not helpful. And I think that's something, again, an employer wouldn't think about. They think, oh no, that couldn't happen. No, it happens quite a lot, actually, because they want
money. There's money in chaos. There's money in chaos, Susie. There's money in conflict. And so that's a for sure thing. So, and I love what you said about that the courtroom is their playground. And so what does that mean to employers listening today? That means that they are costing your employee thousands of dollars each time they need to go to court over things that don't matter, right?
Yeah.
Things that aren't real, things that it's designed to hurt him or her, that the non-narcissistic partner, and it's designed to bankrupt them if at all possible. It is to make their life miserable. So it's really important, that we get in there early. And this is why, we have here at Divorce Right, we have experts in all sorts of high conflict divorces that can get in there. You're one of them, Susie. Get in there and mitigate some of this damage, because this damage does show up at work. It does show up in their workplace, and it does matter because that employee doesn't know what to do. Sometimes, like me, for the longest time, being in the middle of it, I didn't know I did not realize that I had done it yet again. And it was very, very frustrating. So, and you had also mentioned mediation. Does that ever work in this case?
I've argued with a few mediators on this, and barristers and lawyers, because it's you in theory you cannot, strictly speaking, mediate with a narcissist. However, I often say to clients, depending on their situation, are they stupid? And they'll go, well, no, they're very, very clever and manipulative. And I'll say, well, okay, that's good, because actually only a really, really stupid person in your situation would go to court, because if you've got to cut a deal with the finances. So if they realize, because they probably don't realize, they think, well, I'll use my Rottweiler lawyer and I'll just keep grinding her down with the legal bills, and obviously I'll win because I'm a narcissist and I'm always right. But sometimes, because they're not stupid, they realize this isn't working out too well. They're spending a lot of money. It's taking so much time. And employers listening, it's the time side you really need to be aware of, because this can go on for years, right?
Years and years and years.
They have to take time out to go to court. It's really disruptive. So the narcissist person who's on the narcissistic side goes, actually, I'm not enjoying this anymore. And if the person who has been the victim of that has got the right help, has worked with someone who can help them put in boundaries, understand what's happening to them, and got that support. I know you have people in the States who do that. So if they get that support, and they have worked out, possibly working with a financial planner, what is the best way to actually split this? And it's all laid out, very left brain, nice little graphs, long-term cash flow forecasts, something a judge would look at and go, that makes sense. And you go in for the deal. I always say to them, you must ask for more than I know you need, because you're dealing with a narcissist. So they have to knock you down. So you
They
can
have to win. They have to.
So you let them. You go, oh, right then. But because you've run the figures, you're still okay. But getting them into the mediation at that point where they realize that actually it's not working in the course for them, it's taking too long, but they still feel that sense of ego, and maybe I've won. So it can work, but you've got to have a mediator or dual mediators who understand what's going on. Who aren't beguiled by the charm and fall for it. But also, I often encourage people to get that initial mediation with a narcissist, because get them in for one. So don't worry if they storm out. Don't worry, don't worry if
they will. And they will.
But they've experienced it, and they know what it is, because later they might be prepared to come back. So I may sound optimistic, but the alternative is so horrible and goes on for so long. And because they're not stupid, actually, it's often in their best interest to go back and cut that deal. But you must let them win. You need to pitch it and let them knock
exactly. That's exactly right. You have to put it into what's in it for them. So mediation is one way, but is that the only dispute resolution option available to them?
Not at all. But on mediation, I would say to because often when you stand up to a narcissist and it becomes emotionally dangerous, sometimes physically, you're scared to be in a mediation. But if you can do this online, if they're misbehaving, bam, they're in a breakout room. So but you got to find mediators. I have one in the UK who's very happy to work with that. She works with people who are in physically abusive relationships. Not your average mediator won't do that. So you do need to find the right people to deal with your situation. But as you say, there's other options. There's collaborative law, where you both have your lawyers by your sides, and also there is also the option of arbitration if your spouse is determined that a judge is going to decide, because the judge is bound to agree with them. At least with arbitration, you can save, in the UK, you're saving yourself about 1.5 years and an awful lot of money if together, well, what I say to the to the aggrieved spouse, as it were, the one who's dealing with a narcissist, here's a few arbitrators to chat to. Do 2 or 3, do a mixture, make sure you're happy, and then give them a closed choice. So here's 2 or 3, have a and see who you want to work with. It's very important. And you're not trying to bully them in any way, but you do give them a closed choice. And then they'll choose hopefully one of them, and then at least that decision is made. So it's not, you shouldn't just give up and think, oh, it's a narcissist, I have to go to court. You need to be really canny in how you deal with it, and you need to support system, because you can't just do that. You've been brainwashed for years, bullied for years. Now is the
Beaten
time
down. You're a fraction of yourself, for sure.
And probably terrified, because he's told you you're going to lose the house, and he's told you all
He's going to
kinds
take the kids and and you're
and
lousy. And
there's probably a lot of parental alienation going on with the children. That's a horrible, horrible side effect, which unfortunately is often part of the mixture. So it's a terrible, terrible experience, but it's like a rebirth, isn't it? So you once you come out the other side, you learn skills. So if you work with, any of your professionals, or with Ruth here in the UK, you know how to talk to a narcissist. You know how to keep them. It's all about getting them pinned down and accountable, because they don't do accountability. So if you're talking about the finances, you want to have, you might have the financial plan in with you on the session. You can do that in a mediation as well, not just collaborative law. And you're going through and going, oh, but if you do that, oh, look, she hasn't got any money to pay the bills. And you need to pin them down to the facts all the time. Otherwise, they'll just go off and create a sort of charade, and everyone will kind of go along with it. So it's a tough thing to do, but you'll never, if you get it right, you'll never need to be in that situation again. You're learning life skills, and that's going to be good in the workplace, because there's plenty of narcissists there, and you'll work better with all of those people, and you'll manage teams where you've got those personalities, because it is, for most people, they're on a spectrum. And as we were saying earlier, when it's really bad, it's actually a mental illness by the time it gets to there.
It is a disorder.
That's tough. I mean, it's tough. When you've got someone who's really, really on that extreme, then your boundaries need to be very, very strong. And that is where you want a good court system to back you up. And the saddest thing here is it's not very strong. You can, the classic example is, you may have, as an employee, you may have someone who said, right, I've sent him a letter. He's got to send me filled in all the financials so we can go to mediation or to court. And I had someone recently, they'd spent, I think it was £2,000 on solicitors' letters. And I said, but he's never going to do it. I hadn't met him, but it was very clear he's never going to do it. So tell your lawyer to stop sending letters, because he's not reasonable. He's not going to do it. You need to get a court order. Just get on with it. Go straight to it. So although I'm all about peace, I'm also about, peace isn't fluffy. If someone is absolutely not going to respect anything, and he's going to ignore even court orders, you have to use the court. But the saddest thing is when I have people who have had a court order, and their spouse just ignores it, and then they have to go and pay and find the money to go back to court to get them to do what the court's already told them. And then my heart bleeds, because they shouldn't, the system is failing them. And again, as an employer, you need to know that it's not a great system, and it's set up for reasonable people. It's not set up for narcissists.
It's it's interesting, because the same thing, at least I've seen it here in the States, the same thing happens in the courtroom that happens with that same thing in the, at work, where everybody just loved, your spouse that was the narcissist. That same charm shows up in a courtroom. Yeah. And it's really hard for a judge that does not know this person to know whether they're being, having the wool pulled over their eyes. It's hard to see that. And because they are so charming and so wonderful, and they know the act that they need to create to get your approval. And so it's just really it's a very scary time. And it's also, so you had mentioned something about peace, and I know you have like a peace toolkit. Why don't you tell us about that?
Essentially, that is making sure that people understand the range of dispute resolutions we were talking about, because they don't really find out that much about it until far too late in the process in the UK. So I make sure they're getting it right up front. So that is talking about mediation and saying that that can be shuttle. You don't have to see them. You give it, just letting them know that actually it's a process that they take control of. It's not just another opportunity for their ex to bully them, which is often how they perceive.
Oh,
Some people don't even know what mediation is. They still think it's about going and getting counselling and somebody's going to try and get them back together again. I'm like, no, it's helping you break up. So
no.
they've never heard of collaborative law, because collaborative lawyers don't promote it enough, basically, and they don't know of arbitration as an option. So there's just massive amount of basic ignorance. So if
That's exactly right.
people
You
have
know,
the information up front, they can make more kind of create a strategy and make more rational decisions about how they can go through this, especially if they've got children.
and that's, you just said something that I want everybody here to hear, because I've been in this industry now for so long, that the brand of divorce is lawyer up. I'm going to get a shark. I'm going to get a bulldog. And all of that just guarantees that there will be more conflict. You won't have a relationship that's worth anything after you split. The conflict will continue. The hurt on your children will be there. And there are so many other ways to have your employee go through this process that doesn't bankrupt them, that doesn't bankrupt them emotionally, and that gives them an opportunity to live a life in a different way. It may look completely different than what they're used to, but they'll be safe, they'll be better, and they'll find happiness. And that's and that is, for us, is the most important, is to take and hold your employees as they go through a system that can eat them alive a lot of times. And that I'm so glad that you're talking about all of these other ways to divorce. So I know that you have a resource hub. Uh, tell us a little bit about the resources you have on your website.
Briefly, Best Way to Divorce is a resource hub, and I have got resources for anyone in the UK and also California, which includes information on DIY divorce, and obviously dispute resolution, co-parenting, access to co-parenting diaries, which people haven't even heard of. I always push people to do a plan if they can. Don't just go straight to the diary.
Timeline.
Make a plan, and also on recorded evergreen webinars. So I did one in February, actually, in California. So some great US professionals there who know about California law and mediation. So they're just great ways for people to tool up information wise and understand how it all works.
What's your website?
It's easy. Bestwaytodivorce.com.
Best way to
divorce.com. And it's free to register on the hub. But I was just thinking about what we were saying earlier with employees, and that the employers, what they need to also know is actually when employees get help, it can be very, very quick, the change. So you can have an employee who's perhaps a woman, her team are in despair, she's completely unable to manage anything, she's in a terrible emotional state with it, all of not just the divorce, but the fact that she's got this very difficult person who's just becoming really, really vicious. And often they'll use that viciousness. I know some right now, actually, who's using the children to get at the mother, and it's so cruel. And you just think, how can he do that? And you remember, oh yes, he's mentally ill. He has no connection. He doesn't know how much he's harming the children. So all of these terrible things can be going on, and you can think, oh my God, what are we going to do with her? She's never ever going to get right. But actually that's not true. She gets the right help and she learns to understand what's happening to her and to put up those boundaries and to breathe and to not get triggers, because he knows how to trigger her. And she learns these things. She can learn those actually quite quickly. And suddenly you've got someone, and I've had this with one lady, she said, oh, I can't possibly mediate because I can't be in a room with him, to well, the mediation went really well. I used all the techniques. He behaved differently because it wasn't working. What he normally does wasn't working anymore. And it
Right.
was so exciting. And she, and it doesn't mean it's an easy ride, but she was actually able to mediate some stuff. So you might find that certain things you maybe they'll blow up with the finances, and you have to use the courts to get that through, but you may still be able to get things sorted with the kids, and you've got to co-parent with that person for maybe another 20 years.
You're
So
right.
you
That's the thing. And that's
yeah.
why employers understand that this relationship, even though it's over in a divorce, can be long lasting
Oh, no, no, no,
and
no.
unbelievably
Yeah.
terrifying
Yeah.
for decades. So we have the resources you need to help your employee that is dealing with a narcissistic ex or current spouse. And we would love to help you with that. There is nobody that is here to make a difference in the lives of those that are impacted by narcissists than me. So I'm so happy. Susie, thank you so much. And I'm so grateful to have had you here today. We are going to have a lot of discussions about the narcissistic personality disorder, including some of the physical differences in the brains of narcissists. We have an expert talking about that. So thank you so much. Next week, we're going to be talking with my friend and special needs expert, Dr. Susan Bernstein, next Thursday at 1 p.m. She is an expert with special needs families. So if you have employees with special needs children, please know that they experience divorce at alarmingly high rates, and they need very special support, or they can lose their children's benefits. It can be devastating financially and emotionally if it's not handled properly. We are here to talk about that next Thursday at 1 p.m. And Dr. Susan Bernstein will be our guest. So for now, thank you so much, Susie, for joining us. And we will see you all next week. Bye for now.